My guest this week is Dr. Will Cole. Dr. Cole is a leading functional medicine expert specializing in thyroid issues, autoimmune conditions, hormonal dysfunctions, digestive disorders, and brain issues. He's a leading voice in the health and wellness communities, and he has a brand new book out today, Ketotarian, the mostly plant-based plan to burn fat, boost your energy, crush your cravings, and calm inflammation. Listen and learn from his wealth of knowledge, from the ketogenic diet to spirituality in our health journey. Enjoy the interview. Dr. Will Cole, welcome to You Elevated. It's so great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
I love having you. Oh, no, this is a huge time for you as well.
Yeah.
You have a brand new book that just came out, Ketotarian.
Yeah.
And before we dive into that, though, I have a really important question that I open the show with for everybody. How do you start your day?
I start my day off with gratitude, and I don't mean that like from a fluffy Instagram point. I mean it like just I try to start my day off with just being thankful for the day. And
do you do that in like a specific like prayer thing, or when you're still laying in bed, do you think to yourself, "Oh man, I'm so glad I woke up today"? Or how does that?
You know
work?
what it is? I keep my eyes. Normally I shut. And I say a Hebrew prayer, the Modeh Ani, in the morning, and that's what I do in the morning before I even open my eyes. I just start my day off with just being thankful for the day, and and then practically I fast in the morning. I guess that's interesting for people, but I intermittent fast in the morning, so I don't eat any food. I drink
water or anything? Or?
Water and Earl Grey tea. Earl Grey tea has bergamot in it, and it enhances autophagy or cellular repair. So I do that. So there's the spiritual and then the practical.
How much time do you spend on the spiritual before getting out of bed, or even after you get out of bed?
That's not long. That's a couple seconds of just present moment awareness and mindfulness, and then I'm on my day. And then I guess there's spiritual before we start seeing patients too. Basically, I meet with the team and we go over the schedule and basically pray for the people that are on the schedule for that day. Just because we're dealing with difficult cases, and we want to best serve them. And we don't always, we want to be the best we can be for them.
So tell me a little bit about your practice too.
Mm-hmm.
What is, when you say you have all these patients coming in and they're difficult, what is it that you do?
Yeah, so I'm a functional medicine practitioner, and about 90% of my patients are seen via webcam. So
cool.
Yeah, I'm primarily virtual, and seeing patients all around the world. And the reason why they're coming to us typically is because they've seen lots of doctors, brilliant doctors, but they're not where they want to be. And they're looking to us to kind of take it to the next level, see what's missing, run labs, get a good, thorough functional medicine perspective about their case. So I don't take that lightly, and it's a huge responsibility, but it's not. It's a good thing. I just have to remind myself of the gravity of what they're looking for.
So functional medicine, we here in the United States know what medicine is. It means I go to a doctor, they ask me for a $25 copay to see them. They run some tests, they poke at me, they kind of move me through quickly, and then off I go, and maybe I'm given a prescription for something, and it may or may not make me better. How is functional medicine different from that?
Well, functional medicine is another word for it's integrative medicine or systems medicine. So it's really the best of alternative health, which is getting somebody healthy and not just covering up with medications, and the best of conventional medicine, which is being evidence-based and running labs. But functional medicine takes a more thorough, comprehensive approach. So we're looking at these root causes from a diagnostic standpoint, from an evidence-based lab standpoint, to get a really multiple labs perspective from their vantage point. What are these root facets that give people these symptoms that they're going through, or their health problems, whatever it may be. So that's what we do. We customize healthcare based on the individual because we're all different. So we're using these labs to tailor healthcare to the individual.
Wait, we're all different? What do you mean we're all different? I thought that if you have this symptom combined with this symptom and this temperature, whatever, then you're just given a pill and off we go. That's not the case? I'm saying that sarcastically.
Yeah, it is that oversimplistic view that works sometimes, right? There are some people that get benefits from medications, and there's some people that are alive because of medications. But
they have their place.
Right, they have their place. So we're not entirely maligning it, but the reality is a lot of people fall through the cracks of that standard model of care. A lot of people are doing everything their doctor tells them to do, but they're still struggling. And these are the people I'm talking to. These are the people that I'm spending my time with and getting them the answers that they deserve.
How did you head down this path?
It started long ago in the 80s in rural Pennsylvania, and my parents were interested in wellness. So I was, before it was Instagram sexy, I was drinking like tonics and weird herbal stuff that nobody was doing. They were eating their Captain Crunch and Frosted Flakes, and I was not. So that started there as far as my interest in wellness, but it didn't fully evolve into functional medicine. I was at school, actually, here in Southern California, at an integrative school, Southern California University of Health Sciences. And I heard of a guy called Ketotarian. And he had gone to my school. He was older than I was. And even today, Ketotarian is one of the leading voices in functional medicine. In more of the academic world, he speaks for IFM, the Institute for Functional Medicine. And he was talking about this thing called functional medicine. And I thought, that is what I want to do. And I haven't looked back since. It's just really what I live and breathe. I love it. I get to write about it and teach about it and see patients about. It's really exciting.
And you get to help people. I mean, to me, that seems like one of the kind of coolest things, right? You're actually making a difference in people's lives. We have Jenna Cavello from Agent Nature was on this show recently as well. Mm-hmm. That's how you guys ended up working together, right? You are helping her.
Yeah, and she's been public about that, patient privacy and stuff. I'm not
understood, but I mean, in terms of she's very public and
I can speak about it because she spoke about it. Yeah, for sure. No, I mean it's an honor to be a part of someone's wellness journey like that, and people are just looking for answers and they're not finding it so often in standard model of care.
So I want to go back to something that you said, Dr. Will Cole, which is you pray for your patients. Mm-hmm. Now, some people will be kind of offended. Some people are turned off. But a lot of people are open to it when you present it in a way. Or I view spirituality as a very broad thing, whether you're Jewish, Christian, Hindu, Buddhist, Muslim, some other earth religion, Zoroastrian, whatever that is. Prayer, meditation, they all kind of have a common root basis in the way I look at it. Is that how you see that too?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's not religious in that way. It's really not. It's spiritual. It's mindful awareness is really what it is. By being fully focused, and the morning's your start of your day. And when you're busy seeing patient after patient after patient, anyone's busy schedule, the day can get away from them. Are you going to be reactive or proactive? I want to be proactive to the people that I'm serving in that moment. So I'm going through the day and there's a practical component to it. It's like, okay, what are they going through? How can I be there for them on a practical basis? Because when they're coming in, I want to be already ahead of the game as far as knowing where they're at that moment. So there's that level to it, but then there's also the mindfulness of like, how can I serve them? How can I be there for them? And just it's focus, it's day focus for your day. So I think you can take it for whatever level that you resonates with you. But I think it's really just mindful awareness.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
So let's fast forward just a little bit. Ketotarian, you talked about intermittent fasting, autophagy. So your new book is Ketotarian, and I'm super excited because I've been doing the keto diet. I've been into health and wellness my whole life, but we decided in my house, it was about a year and a half ago, we kicked sugar. We just removed it. We've always been into things like kale and greens and all that kind of stuff. And then we've kind of moved forward. We've done some tests on our own. IgG reactivity test. Oh, that's why I always hated cashews because I'm off the charts. My immune system just goes, you can't eat cashews. They're horrible for you. So stuff like that, we've made those changes in our lives. I'm even wearing a continuous glucose monitor from Dexcom to observe my body and to be in solidarity with my daughter who's a type 1 diabetic. So we've really refined. Keto, I have found, for me, works exceptionally well. Do you think keto is for the majority of people, for all people, for many people? Wait, let's start there. What do you think about keto for the average person?
Yeah, so it's a ketogenic state is where humans would have spent most of human existence as far as our DNA is concerned. Our DNA hasn't changed for the past 10,000 years. And for the majority of human history, we would have spent times in ketosis. So I see it as our metabolic foundation and a place of metabolic flexibility. So the fact of the matter is, I think most people across the Western world it would behoove them to get back to that metabolic foundation. And then from there, we can all spend times out of ketosis, and some people can do that. They have the metabolic flexibility once they've gained that they've built that metabolic flexibility from being in ketosis. Then they can go in and out of ketosis or fat burning. They can go up their carbs someday and then go back to ketosis when they want sort of a metabolic reset, or they will do a cyclic ketosis schedule throughout the week. They'll do 5 days of ketosis, 2 days upping their carbs, or they'll center it around workouts or something like that. So I see it as a tool to use in your wellness world and your wellness routine. It's not that everybody has to be in ketosis all the time, even though there's some people that will tell you when they go out of ketosis, they don't feel as good. People with insulin resistance, people with PCOS, people with different autoimmune inflammatory problems, they do better longer terms in ketosis. So it's about personalizing it, and that's really the heart of functional medicine, is what's right for you. So there's no wide sweeping statements with ketosis. I think it's down to the individual, but I think it is a tool to use for everybody to some degree.
So what is ketosis?
So ketosis is a metabolic state. We have two forms of fuel to fuel our body. We have sugar burning and fat burning. Most people in the West, we're in sugar burning mode. We're going from meal to meal. We get hangry sometimes. We get irritable. Yes. Our blood sugar
Why are you looking at me?
Blood sugar roller coaster, right? This is sugar burning mode. It's akin to kindling on a fire is sugar burning. So it works. It will light a fire, but you have to keep going back often to refuel to keep that fire burning. Now there's different forms there's like dirty sugar burning and cleaner sugar burning, meaning that the standard American diet, dirty kindling. But then there's the real food movement where it's way better than the standard American diet, but it's still varying degrees of sugar burning, varying degrees of kindling, meaning that you'll still be hangry and irritable and be fatigued. Then the other option is fat burning. And that's what ketosis is. It's burning fat for fuel. It's burning our own fat as well as foods that are higher in healthy fats. So this is akin to fire burning. It's more sustainable. It lasts longer. You're off the blood sugar roller coaster. That's what ketosis is. Again, humans would have been in times of ketosis for thousands and thousands of years. This isn't anything new. It's just new to us because we are so consumed with sugar to varying degrees, from the Frosted Flakes or the sugary cereal to the real foods that break down into sugar too.
I think that's important. Let's spend a moment on that, Dr. Will, because people think of sugar as sugar. So if I'm not eating, like you said, Frosted Flakes, not to pick on them, or Frosted Mini Wheats or whatever, I grew up eating that stuff too, Captain Crunch, right?
Yeah.
People think of that as sugar, but that's not. I mean, so if I eat even regular old white rice, immediately converts to sugar in our bloodstream. Yeah. And so there's sugar that we get in many forms. White bread, even if you eat too much fruit or a lot of fruit, I ate a banana this morning. I observed my blood glucose levels went up when I eat a banana.
Yeah, because you have the glucometer, you can see. Even people that are not diabetic, you'll see your blood sugar spike. Now, I don't want people to become obsessive or fearful of real food carbs, but it's just what is in balance with your biochemistry. And when you eat out of alignment with your biochemistry, then you have problems. Some people have higher carb tolerances than others. Some people can have more sugar and starchy stuff, and they're fine. A lot of people, they don't have that tolerance. So the goal is to build the metabolic flexibility to increase your tolerance, but some people will never have it fully. They can't have that all day, every day. They won't feel as good. Their labs will reflect that. They'll have inflammation. But yeah, so that's what ketosis is. It's really building that metabolic flexibility. The problem is the conventional ketogenic diet. If you look on Instagram, it's a lot of, vats of dairy and bacon and any old meat, anything, as long as it's high fat, low carb. They'll have the artificial sweetener because it's low carb. That has its pitfalls too, which is why I wrote Ketotarian, which is a plant-based ketogenic approach. So it's getting the benefits of ketosis without falling prey to the potential pitfalls of that conventional way of going keto.
So it's funny that you talk about Instagram and what we see there, because when I first started learning about the ketogenic diet, I immediately thought to myself, well, I'm old enough to remember the Atkins diet, and I knew people who did Atkins, and this sure reminds me of Atkins. I mean, they're fairly similar, especially what's now being called the dirty keto, which is what you described.
Yeah, so Atkins, and he did amazing things, I think, for people's health, and I know amazing people that worked for him, and they've did amazing things at that time. But he wasn't specific about the macros. He was not measuring ketosis. He wasn't moderating protein so much. So ketogenic diet is high fat, moderate protein, low carb. So if you're being technical about it, too much protein for long periods of time isn't healthy. It can upregulate something called mTOR, which is a pathway that can feed certain cancers, basically accelerate aging. So that's something that people in the ketogenic research world are actually intentional about not overdoing the protein, because that actually is good from a longevity standpoint.
Oh, that's great. Thank you for clarifying that. Yeah. So plant-based, highly controversial. What I think is becoming more controversial are our sources of fat. I've talked to people, I have yet to have her on this show yet, but like Dr. Kate Shanahan, we've talked about oils, and people are always concerned. So one of the big ones that a lot of people are talking about in a very positive way, and then from there it starts to drift elsewhere. Extra virgin olive oil, everybody loves it as long as you're getting a good quality extra virgin olive oil. Yeah. But from there, in the ketogenic and plant-based, Ketotarian style diet, what else is there? So even extra virgin olive oil, can I get too much of that?
Yeah. I mean, too much fat, especially too much fat too soon, if your body is not used to having healthy real food fats, your body has to adjust to that. Yeah. Especially if somebody doesn't have a gallbladder, their body have to wake their system up. So it's not that you can have too much of it. You can have too much of anything. Yeah. I think it's a bigger point. You should have these things to satiety until you're not hungry anymore. You can overeat anything, but the great thing about healthy fats is that it is filling, and it triggers your brain to say, hey, there's enough here. You're way less inclined to over-consume these real food fats, because it's your body, again, it's in alignment with your biochemistry. So your brain's used to saying, okay, we're good. Versus the carbs, you could overeat really quickly and not going to get the message until you're nauseous and sick because you've overfed yourself.
So I want to get into that, what you just said, which is, you can get into this too fast and you have to let your body chemistry adjust. Well, one of the big problems with anything when we're talking about changing our lives, especially food, which is such a deep, not only personal, it's cultural, how we eat. It's, for some people, spiritual. It's how we pacify whatever ill is falling on us. We eat, right? How do you take a step into this if you're not the type, the rich roll type who just can immediately just cut everything and change your entire life? Or I'm able to do that to some degree too, but most people are not. How do you step into this healthy, let's say I eat a can of chips a day and I, go to a fast food restaurant for my dinner every night. How do you begin making that change?
Yeah. And seeing patients really informed me how I'd like to approach Ketotarian, because I put all the cool science stuff in for the people that are biohackers like yourself and the people that are already eating cleaner than the standard Western diet. But I realized not everybody's there. And I had to, for every science-based, deeper look, I wanted a keeping it simple option. So for those people, when they're reading something like Ketotarian, maybe they're not tracking their macros or doing all the next level stuff. They're just focusing on these real foods. They're just
feel better, right?
Right. And that motivates people. Yeah. So and sometimes if they go too fast too soon, they can feel overwhelmed, they can feel stressed, and then they can unintentionally sabotage themselves. So I'd rather somebody lean into it as long as they're progressing then versus feeling like they have to do everything or nothing. And then they sit there with this paralysis of analysis and never do anything because they just are always reading these books and looking to like starting at some other time because they're just too overwhelmed. Sometimes you just need to lean into it and get started. So hopefully with Ketotarian, they can feel like they don't have to be perfect overnight. They can start leaning into these ways of clean eating, being plant-based keto without, feeling alienated.
So when you say plant-based, as I flip through your cookbook, I mean, it has a lot of recipes, right? It's Ketotarian.
Yeah.
I see, and this is such an odd discussion to have outside of people in certain circles.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's veganism, there's vegetarianism, there's pescatarianism, and traditional vegetarianism is lacto-ovo. There's a full omnivore diet. There's all these different isms and Arianisms, all that kind of stuff. I didn't see that you're, I hate to use the word religious, but you're not dogmatic in your approach. Tell me a little bit more about that, because I mean, like, fish can play a role in your version of being ketogenic.
Yeah, so there's 3 different tracks, really, components to Ketotarian. There's vegan keto, which is completely vegan keto. If some people, based on their religious or ethical reasons or personal preference, maybe they just get sickened by eating too much meat, they can go that track. And I wanted to give the people in the vegan world an option to do their diet in a healthier way instead of depending on sugar and carbs for their fuel.
Yeah. Can't tell you how many vegan meals I've been to where it's like, this is just sugar.
Yeah, it's sugar. Just because it has the word vegan on it doesn't mean it's healthy.
Right, no animal product, but it's still terrible for you.
Exactly. So there's Ketotarian will give them vegan keto options. Then there's vegetarian keto options, which has eggs and ghee, clarified butter, and then pescatarian keto, which what I call in the book is vegequarian. It's still plant-based, but it's
I love that word.
yeah, but it's wild-caught fish and shellfish and stuff like that. So they could do one of those. They could do all 3 of those is what I recommend. So they're still plant-centric, but they are still having these other foods into.
So tell me, you just said ghee. Now, a lot of Americans do not know what ghee is. That is very much not an American thing.
Yeah.
We know butter. We
Yeah.
don't know ghee. Tell me about that.
So ghee is a fancy word for clarified butter. So it's a traditional Indian food that's used in a lot of different Indian dishes. So it's prepared traditionally. Someone can clarify their own butter and make ghee, but it's removing the casein or the dairy protein. So it's just the dairy fat. So we're talking about healthy fats. This is some grass-fed organic ghee that you can get in stores already clarified if you don't want to do it yourself.
Right. There's high-quality products out there.
Exactly. And a lot of these brands are batch testing them to be casein free. So people that have sensitivities to dairy tend to do better with ghee because the casein is removed. So it has a high smoking point. It's good for cooking with. And it's a good, part of this Ketotarian way of life if people want to have versatility or a variety of things to cook with or use in their dishes.
Okay, so casein. And what is the potential problem with casein other than just a choice that I don't like? I don't want to have whatever. I don't want the cow protein because maybe I'm concerned about the A1, A2 protein issue, for example, that I've discussed before. Is there a benefit? It's just a higher smoke point, or is there really another benefit to it?
It's a higher smoke point. That's one of them. And most people aren't, when they're getting butter, they're not, and not even that, it's not even that available as the A2 butter. I guess they could go by A2 butter.
I'm going to give you something. Hang on a second. We're going to interrupt part of the show. Actually, we're not interrupting. So I am just so into this stuff. This is a keto cookie that I make.
Wow.
I'd like you to grab one and try it.
Should I try it now?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. And we'll give one to Solomon and producer Sam over here. So this is a keto cookie.
Wow.
And I use that has Italian water buffalo butter.
It's amazing.
Is one of the key ingredients in that. And just to show the versatility, what people don't understand. So this is a vanilla chocolate chip cookie.
Yeah.
And so it's like cassava flour, coconut flour, tiger nut flour. But I'm able to find things like Italian water buffalo butter. So that water buffalo, you don't have the A1, A2 protein issue because water buffalo doesn't make the A1 protein mutant gene. But you can do things that's MCT oil, and that is No Foods chocolate chip is what I use in there.
It's amazing.
It's like 1 gram of net carb in an entire cookie.
Really good.
So there are lots of, in addition to all the plant stuff, so this is kind of in your range of the vegetarian
Yeah.
keto.
This is Ketotarian.
Yeah, but there are so many ways of doing it, and that's why it's so important to have your book out, Ketotarian, is because people don't realize there are so many options to address this.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
that's just another way. I can have a sweet that tastes like any top. I mean, we have a young man over here.
Yeah.
Did you try a bite? Is it any good? Yes. Okay. I mean, you can say no. If
It's
you
my
don't like it.
12-year-old son. He loves cookies.
Okay, good. But you can. So there are so many options, right? And ghee is one of them. I've played with ghee, but you can find, especially in bigger cities on the West Coast, you can find things like water buffalo butter.
Yeah. That's so cool. It's amazing. It's really good. Really is good. And people don't have to eat like a rabbit to be healthy. And I think that's the bigger point. They think, I'm going to be living on salads. I can't ever enjoy food. This is not about that. This is about really loving your body enough to feed it good, delicious foods that it makes you feel good overall and improves your health.
Yeah. And again, I speak to this as somebody who's lived it, right? I mean, I have two reconstructed shoulders. I've been in multiple motorcycle and car accidents. So I have 7 subluxated discs in my spine. I've walked with a cane at multiple points in my life where I had to have a cane to be able to walk. I'm fit. I run hills and mountains. I lift weights. But it wasn't the exercise. It was what I was putting in my body.
Yeah.
That was such a big part of that. And it was influences like yours, in terms of going toward the keto diet. But that, again, it's not perfect. It's not all the time. It's not for everybody. I had to find what worked for me. Like I said, I did an IgG test.
Yeah.
I don't know if you do those in your practice.
Yeah.
But I had to find out, peanuts, my body reacts really negatively. Cashews, my body horribly reacts. So a lot of vegan foods don't work for me because it's like cashew is the substitute for so many things.
Yeah. And in Ketotarian, I put a lot of autoimmune protocol friendly recipes in there because most of my patients are somewhere on this autoimmune inflammation spectrum. So those are free of nuts and seeds, nightshades, dairy, obviously. So some people, you're right, nuts. And cashews are actually in the poison ivy family. Randomly.
Right.
Yeah. So.
It's not a nut at all. It's in this weird fruit, and it's the little thing inside.
Yeah, people have problems with cashews and peanuts. It's interesting that you both showed up on your test.
I thought so too. And I've been exposed to them since I was a kid. So it's not like, the peanut allergy. I have a family member who is, you can't bring a peanut in the door. He may end up at the emergency room. It's a real thing. People forget that peanut allergies are real.
Yeah.
But, there was the Israeli study that showed if you expose early, it can reduce the incidence of the peanut allergy. I've been on peanuts and cashews and all that stuff my whole life. I just always disliked cashews, and I never knew why until I did that test. So how did those tests fit into all of this? What kind of tests are you talking about that people might not even be aware of?
Yeah. So labs, we live in a time, where it's the dichotomy of we have this really high level of autoimmune conditions out there and inflammatory problems. But at the same side of that, because of that, there's a growing development of labs and research and stuff for people to do to improve their health versus 20 years ago, they didn't have all the options that we have today. So the labs are based on the health history. So you don't want to run every lab under the sun just because you can. So that's where health history comes into play. So you're running the most pertinent labs to your case. You're not spending money on labs that are irrelevant. So for people with autoimmune issues or food sensitivity, we may look at the gut microbiome, which is 75% of the immune system when you're dealing with inflammatory issues. It's not just about digestion, which is certainly important, but the impact that the microbiome can have on the immune system, or the brain. 95% of the serotonin, it's your second brain is your gut, and they're formed from the same fetal tissue when babies are growing in their mom's womb. So
wait, hang on. Stop right there for just 1 second.
Yeah.
You just said something. The gut and the brain are developing from the same fetal tissue?
Yeah, so when babies are growing in their mom's womb, they're formed from the same fetal tissue, and they're inextricably linked for the rest of people's lives through what's known as the gut-brain axis. It's basically the connection between the gut and brain, and it's bidirectional. The gut influences the brain and then vice versa. But again, the majority of serotonin levels are made in the gut, stored in the gut, and this is what is linked to anxiety, depression, autism, ADHD, ADD. All of these brain issues have their roots in the gut, at least a component of the roots in the gut. So these are some of the things that we look at for many people.
Okay, the gut. This is such a big topic right now, right? As you threw out some of the statistics. One of my concerns when I hear, or let's say I'm scrolling Instagram, hey, buy this probiotic, spend a lot of money on this test or whatever. One of my thoughts about it is we are just coming out of the dark ages. We're just beginning to enter the Renaissance period of understanding gut health, is how I view it. So I'm always concerned, I feel skeptical to some degree when I hear people tell me, hey, this probiotic's going to solve, just take this every day and you've solved your gut issues. I don't believe that because it's too complicated and we don't know enough yet to know all of the 37,000 strains of bacteria I think have been identified so far in the human gut, something like that.
Yeah, we're at the forefront of it. So it is not, it's sometimes oversimplified on social media and for marketing purposes. It's complex. So the gut takes time to heal, years for some people. It's definitely not going to be solved in a probiotic. Now, something like a probiotic can be definitely a major tool for some people. And anecdotally, you hear that. My digestion improved so well when I started taking this, not just a probiotic, but anything for the gut, because it is such a core aspect to our health. But it is, I don't want to mislead people. It definitely is multifaceted. It takes time. Anybody that's going through gut problems or autoimmune issues will tell you this is a journey. Whereas a probiotic may be a piece of the puzzle, but it's not the entire puzzle.
Right. And that's one of the other things that's very interesting to talk about and curious to hear your thought on this is when I've always had a sweet tooth. But once I quit the sugar, I always hated things like sauerkraut and those types of fermented foods. I never liked them until I quit sugar. Now I can't get enough sauerkraut, kimchi, natto, miso. These are all foods I used to dislike, and now I love them. And I wonder if that's back to the signal that my gut is sending to my brain that I've kicked the sugar side of it.
Absolutely. People's tastes change. Whenever they're off of these foods, they're oversensitized to the sugar. I hear that a lot. People's tastes change, their preferences change. Things that they thought they didn't like, they end up liking. That's the amazing dynamic aspects of our body. And if you give your body, oftentimes when you give your body what it needs to thrive, it'll reshift. And that's what metabolic flexibility is all about. That's what ketosis is about. That's what going for these real foods is all about. Then you start craving real foods with life in them.
Yeah. And back to the you said pasture-raised and organic when we're talking about ghee, when we're talking about gut health. What are your thoughts on organic and pasture-raised and all of these issues and GMO and does that play into how you view food that we're consuming? Is there a place for conventional farming, or should we be focused exclusively on organic farming? Or because for a lot of people, one of my concerns right now when I talk about food is I might not have the budget to go buy all organic everything, especially parts of the Midwest I've lived in where it's really hard to find organic food, for example. It can be really expensive compared to conventional. What are your thoughts on that?
I think we have to do the best we can. And I think this is a conversation I think that's important to have in wellness, and people that are reading this stuff that aren't even in wellness, is I think that this over obsession and stress and anxiety about foods, we all have our own tolerance for information. Sometimes people can get really overwhelmed and stressed, and then stress is not good for your health. And I think that I would rather have somebody have something conventional and not stress about it, because you have to do the best you can. You can rinse your produce off if it's not organic and wash it well and do the best you can. And I think that's a bigger picture, is that we're all exposed to things. You can't live in a bubble. You have to live real life. And look, some people, this is back to biological variability. Some people have a lot of tolerance to stressors and they're fine. Some people don't have that wiggle room and they get flared up from the smallest of exposures to certain things. So this is about going back to the individual, but as a general statement, I would say we have to do the best we can, and then don't stress about the rest. That's really what I think. I think the Environmental Working Group, EWG, has some great resources for the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen. So you have to pick. If you have to pick from a budget standpoint, you can pick organic off of the Dirty Dozen. So avoid the Dirty Dozen conventional, but go for organic for those. And then the Clean 15, go and have that conventional, and don't buy organic if you want to save money there. But there's really amazing resources out today. Back to, again, the development of the wellness space and the amount of options that people have today. Prices are going down if you're nowhere to shop. So they don't have to feel like, oh, I have to be like a celebrity or break, the bank to go and eat well and eat healthy foods. My patients are predominantly working class people, and we make it sustainable for them. You just can't go, don't necessarily just go one store for everything. You have to know where the best prices are. Costco has amazing organic options. Aldi has amazing organic options. So you don't have to go to all the high-end stores for everything. You can go to these stores that are a little bit more cost-effective.
Yeah, and out here on the West Coast, Trader Joe's, they have some.
Sprouts.
You just have to know, to your point, you just have to know. I do that. I run around to the different stores knowing where the best deals are because, until we're all, Oprah Winfrey, we have budgets that we have to pay attention to in terms of what we're buying. And thank you for talking about that. So what about the idea of supplementation? I mean, supplements I think, can be wonderful. And I throw the clause in there, can, because one of the things that's lacking right now that I think really needs to be addressed at some point, and I'm so curious to hear your thought on this, is there aren't standards, right? I mean, I can say I have 100 milligrams of X in my supplement, but how do I know that it's pure? It wasn't just chelated out of a rock, is how you got that mineral. How do I know you got it out of a plant? What are your thoughts about what we're doing with supplements? Because I know, like, we take the ocean adaptogen you created with Agent Nature with Jenna, and it's a marvelous product, but, I trust you, I trust Jenna, we know you. That's different than going to a store and buying a supplement.
Yeah, it can be overwhelming. We have this loving, endearing term called the supplement graveyard, and it's like this massive, people have all these supplements and they're like, what the heck is even right for me? Or it's a supplement graveyard when you go to the health food store and you're like, all these choices, what do you do? So I think that, there's a few different levels to this. I think one level of it is just doing research as a consumer and looking at what's out there and doing some investigation and vetting it, reading customer reviews, looking at independent data. I think that is important as a consumer to inform yourself. And that applies to foods as well. And you should see supplements as foods. They're herbs, micronutrients, they're food-based, most of them, right? So I see them as just a wing of food. Because these are things that people would have been eating traditionally for a long time. We're just not going and making these elixirs anymore and foraging, even though maybe we should be doing more of that. We're not foraging for these herbs and mushroom adaptogens. We are buying them in products. But so I would say do your research of the company or the developer and educate yourself in that way. I think that's the bigger goal that I would have for anybody that's listening. I'm not so sure that having more regulations in the supplement world is a good idea. If you look at the regulation going on in the pharmaceutical world and all the destruction that's going on there, it's highly regulated. But look what's happening in that world. I don't think that that's protecting people. I don't think it is. I think there's maybe for sensible regulations would be good, or I love the independent regulations that's going on in there, the standardizations happening within the industry of hitting certain quality markers. Different functional medicine lines like Zymogen in Florida, they're doing amazing. They're surpassing the actual government regulations because they're interested in quality. So I think that there's a lot of independent people that are looking to provide the best quality ingredients out there that are a lot more effective than the government regulations that are going on currently.
Okay, so one last question for you, Dr. Will Cole.
Yeah.
Ketotarian, and you live it, you love it, this is your life, right? Yeah. What's the one food item that you can't live without?
Well, I could. So
you're on a desert island.
Yeah.
We can drop ship you an unlimited quantity of...
You're saying any food?
Yeah.
Because I love foods that are ketotarian friendly. So I I think it's an important part of wellness to have this sort of grace-based way of eating, of not saying I can't have that stuff, but just like, whoa, what foods make me feel great? Let's focus on those. I love wild-caught fish. I love sweet potatoes. So that's...
So if you're on a desert island, you could grow your own sweet potato and catch some fish.
And eggs. I think eggs would be, if I could have like a little herd of chickens.
Now that's 3 though, Dr. Will.
All right. So those would be my top if I had to get rid of one of those. But yeah.
I'll let you slide with the 3. All right. So Ketotarian, I can't thank you enough for the time coming in.
Yeah.
And I look forward to our next conversation because I'll have a lot of follow-up questions. If you have questions, drop them below. We're going to try and answer the best that we can. I'll pass along the questions to Dr. Will. Send us your comments. I always love your feedback. Thank you so much. Dr. Will Cole, thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Would you be willing to do us a favor? Please subscribe to the channel and share the episode with your friends and family.